Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Possibilities with Monique DeMeo. Today, I have the first ever Fireside chat. As you can see, I'm sitting next to the person I'm interviewing in real life. We can touch. Look, we're actually here. So today, I have the honor and the honest joy of having with me one of my bestest friends. We work together. We have shared some unbelievable personal experiences together. We're on this journey of creating the lives that we love. A really super smart woman, beautiful inside and out, Dartmouth grad, Wall Street. I mean, like almost Titan. Entrepreneur, just sold her company recently and just living authentically. And she has such a great journey and story to tell that I figured I would bring myself to her place and have this fireside chat with you and ask her some questions about, how it all began for her and what she's realized that she can impart to some of you listeners and viewers. And so today I have with me the only Bernardine Wu.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing with me on this journey. And thank you for giving me this chance to share with others. Absolutely.
Bernardine has the anchor leg in the book, 7 Secrets to Designing a Life You Love, a practical guide for women in leadership, where she talks about all the 7 secrets. But obviously, since we don't have a podcast that's 3 hours long, she's going to focus on that, right? Go for that, totally. So we're going to focus on some of the themes that she wants to impart with you guys and probably have her back in a little bit to finish up her thinking. Bernardine, tell us. So you have a very rich history and a very interesting journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
I know it's been a lifelong endeavor for you, and you've always been generous with sharing your experiences, your knowledge, your wisdom, your authenticity, even the messy stuff. We talk about that a lot, right? We're all messy and we're always a work in progress. And I always say that. Yeah, I've had a really lucky, charmed life. It's a balance of that luck and also work. And also the people that have come into my life at various points and right now. And so as I read the transcript for your book and the wonderful stories from other women and their personal and professional journeys, I mean, there's a lot to say and there's a lot to share. I think that there's, everyone has a story in every one of the chapters that you give. And I hope that this podcast goes on to having women just share even just to themselves about how did this resonate for me? what did this mean for me? Because as I read it, I also reflected on, each one of the chapters. And thank you for having me be the closer.
He's the closer
to the book and this podcast.
So I think, your general philosophy, you had a very interesting upbringing. You grew up in the New York metro area. You grew up in Staten Island. You had to mention the Staten Island. I didn't you. She doesn't sound like she's from Staten Island. That's why we mentioned it. Talk to us about, you were in a high school. You were one of the bright kids. You went to an Ivy League school. Like that entire journey, that part of your life, did you always feel like you fit in? Because you talked a little bit about that in the book and how you had to kind of shuck and jive where you were in the context of where you went to school and who you were surrounded with.
Yeah, I think we have the benefit of hindsight and wisdom from looking back. But I was a classic Chinese immigrant kid from a family that, English wasn't like the best language at home. We were not very American, although comparatively, we probably were more Americanized than other first gen. My parents, had to start anew here. And I was lucky to go through this process and get into Stuyvesant in New York City. And that was really life-changing for me for a number of reasons. First of all, I was commuting into the city, and there's nothing that makes you grow up faster than growing up in the city.
Yeah.
And, there were a lot less rules back then. And so, we grew up going all over the city. My classmates were from all 5 boroughs. And we just, knew the subway, we knew how to get around, and we would just do our thing. And our parents didn't have the luxury of cell phones and texting or Life 360 or knowing anything about where we were. Thank God. I would die if my kids were doing the same thing, which they probably were, but I know where they are. And so I wouldn't say it was an easy path, but it was challenging. And I think it definitely made me who I am. I am a much more independent person who has probably a little bit of attitude sometimes, and maybe too much. There was this thing, we say we love it, but I'm not sure my parents loved it. There was a little bit of like, when you're a kid going around the city, you almost have to have a bit of bravado.
Totally.
Because, it was sort of like, if you walk down the street looking like you can't be fucked with, then hopefully you won't get fucked with.
That's right.
I'm very lucky. I was never, I never really had an incident, but we used to go and hang out in the middle of Central Park in the middle of night, and that would be called wilding now, maybe. We weren't doing anything illegal, but and bothering other people, but just it was a time of like extreme independence and finding your own way and figuring stuff out, how to get from place to place, how to get things done. And so I think that really shaped my personality and gave me the opportunity to do that. And so when I did go to Dartmouth, I think I realized that not everybody had the same upbringing. First of all, not a lot of people had been around a multicultural, environment. When I got there, I actually looked at the Facebook, which then was a book, and I counted the number of Asians, and it was like 20 or 30 in the whole school. I don't know. I mean, it felt like that, but it seemed like that. I counted in the book.
Right.
Not a lot of people of color.
Wow.
And so it felt really weird for me. And so it was a strange sort of environment for me, because I came from a multicultural, don't see color kind of environment. I know now that's not seeing color is not the right way to say things, but it's
you didn't give it much thought for you. It was sort of a given that people looked and talked differently, right? Yeah, and then you get to this homogeneous environment. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was very new for me. And then I just felt like the way that people looked at me was a little bit different. That it was a little bit, I talk about this in the book, there was a little bit of a oh, she's Asian, and put me in this category.
You must be the smart Asian girl, right?
Yeah, everybody thought that, like, everybody had a smart Asian or a nerdy Asian kid in their class, so she must be nerdy. And so it took me a little while, but I found my place at Dartmouth, and it was definitely a learning experience, because as you go throughout America or the world, it's not always the same, as New York City. And so that was a learning experience for me. And as I progressed in my career too, I think one of the themes something I always share with young people is, and I tell my kids, don't ask, don't get.
I love that. My kids hear that a lot too.
Yeah, do they? You're listening to this. See, Aunt Bernardine says the same thing.
Auntie Bernardine. But don't ask, don't get. So how does that show up in your life? Because that's a big one.
Well, I think that it's true. If you don't ask for that promotion, or ask for that assignment, or ask for that work, and and there's a graceful, elegant way of doing it, but you have to ask. And I think that many people don't do that. They can sit there and complain about, I didn't get this, or you didn't recognize that, or whatever. But don't ask, don't get. And that includes in your relationships too. Mm-hmm. We had, like, I can ask you for support, I can ask you for things, I can ask you for commitment, and so on, and you'll tell me if you can give it or not. It's the same thing in a marriage, in a relationship, in a parent-child relationship. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this, but I do think that there is, especially amongst women, there's a tendency to not ask.
I agree.
And it shows up for us in our lives, in our personal lives, as well as professionally. And so whenever I'm mentoring, and I spend a lot of time with young people, that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I give. And not just obviously for women, but for all people, because we're not mind readers, right? And so you expect senior leadership or the executives to know. And yes, they do know more about a lot of things, and they are in charge of a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that they don't want you to ask either.
That's a good point. That's a very, very, very good point. Yeah. And if the context that you're coming from is they may not be aware of certain things, not because they don't want to be aware, but that's not in their purview. And in a relationship, it's the same thing. I think I've had situations where I just kind of expect my spouse or my kids to, well, they should know that they should empty the dishwasher. Well, maybe they should, but they don't. So you got to ask.
Right.
Or whatever that thing is that you want them to do.
And maybe the ask isn't just, hey, can you do this one thing for me? It's, hey, can you make it a habit to do this?
That's
for our family.
There you go.
Or,
listen to the language, you guys. Listen to Bernardine's context and how she tees up that question. It is a nuance, but it's a distinction with a difference. So tell us more about the don't ask. Okay, how did that show?
We had I think we had a discussion. I'm sure it was triggered by a landmark because we're both big fans of landmark, as you talk about in the book, but also in our coaching sessions around powerful asks. If you talk to someone and you say, I have a powerful ask of you, or sometimes you've challenged me, if you could have a powerful ask of him or this person, what would it be? Then that is a very clarifying moment or way of distilling, what am I really after? I can vent and complain, and that's valid. There's a place for that. But then I got to get to what is the ask? And if it's a powerful ask, what is it? What does that mean? What is it? And also, if I'm making a powerful ask of you, how am I supporting that?
That's great. That's a masterclass, you guys. Well, we could unpack that for several hours. The idea that this powerful ask not only has implications for the person asking it, but the person asking it and the person receiving the ask. So, what else? This don't ask, don't get theme. How has it shown up in your professional life? I mean, you're a serial entrepreneur. I think that's super, super impressive. You've been part of multiple company sales, multiple acquisitions, multiple mergers. You're good at this.
Well, I won't say that I am a pro at it. I've been through a number of different experiences and been a part of a number of different ventures. Again, also very fortunate to have built relationships with people who would take me from a company to another company. And I think that mentors are important. I think that making those relationships are important. For young people, I often tell them, find the people that you can connect with, whether they could be a formal mentor, or an informal mentor, or a one-time mentor. I think it's important to be proactive about those kinds of relationships. I think that we also have a cohort of women who are gave up careers or non-working or re-entering the workforce. And it's even more important there to ask for the help, to ask for the support, and sometimes ask is a nice way of putting go get it, right? Just do it, go get it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot more that women can do and people can do to build those possibilities for themselves and, create that space, create those possibilities and go get it and just do it.
Really good advice. So that's a great theme. I think the don't ask, don't get is one of Bernardine's themes and something that I try to live by, because think about it. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't ask, you don't get. Yeah. And that's 100% not going to happen if you don't ask.
And it's okay to also say, what I'm asking for is knowledge or advice. I don't know what I want next, or I don't know how to do this. And a lot of, people are too afraid or insecure to ask. My business partner, Cynthia, she often says to me, you're one of the few people that will actually ask you to explain something that might be embarrassing, but that you don't know this word, or you don't know where this phrase came from, or you don't know.
I find that refreshing about you.
And
you'll say, what does that mean?
Oh yeah, I'm completely on.
Yeah, you're like, what does that mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, but you never pretend to know, which is actually a gift, because the other person can receive it also as a compliment, because you're being authentic and you're being vulnerable enough to ask them to explain something that you don't know. That's good for clarity if you're doing work with them, especially when you're in a relationship. It's also good, but I don't understand what you're saying is so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you said vulnerable. It is maybe making yourself a little bit vulnerable to say, I don't know. And I'm asking you. And yeah, what a compliment to ask, which, brings up sort of a second theme around being real. You often say being authentic. I usually say like, be real, or sometimes we show up, we want to show up as real people, real women, or real humans, or real whatever. And I think that it couldn't be more important in this day and age when there is so much pressure to be this, to be that. Yeah, especially on social media and keeping up with your neighbors and so on. And I think that there is time, I hope there's time for people to sit back, and you talk a lot about this in some of your chapters about stepping back, figuring out what is your authentic self, what does it mean for you? And your authentic self may not be fully formed, right? We're all evolving. True. So where am I today? What do I want to be? Well, what's at my core? And what do I believe in? What are my values? What I want it to be? And creating that life in a real way. I've, again, been very fortunate to be involved with Women of Dartmouth, for example. And I've learned so much from these women and people who identify as women, that sometimes you're not living your authentic self. You're filling these shoes. And it doesn't mean that you're being fake. Sometimes that could be the case.
Yes.
But this whole line of thinking is not about being fake. It's just, you may not be being fully yourself.
Fully expressed as yourself, in other words, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. You may be holding back, or you may be not, maybe even enjoying yourself as much as you could.
That's true.
Because you're too busy doing all these things. And look, as moms who also are professional, or have a zillion things to do, even if it's not corporate, it's involved in your community. There's so much going on in women's lives that it is sometimes hard to be of yourself.
That's true.
And for yourself.
I've heard women say things like, I lost myself in the process. They're so busy, let's say, building a career or
raising a family. Yeah.
And then they look, 15 years goes by, and then they kind of look in the mirror and go, who am I?
Yeah.
And I think that's your point about the being real. Sometimes the being real is not obvious. You got to go find it. Very interesting. I have a part in the book I talk about, are you the same person at work and at home? So that in and of itself is being real too, right?
And we were talking about this just the other night. And are we the same person with a partner as with a best friend? And not that you have to tell the same things to everybody, but and you do have different relationships. But do you behave differently? Are you tiptoeing around in one space and not the other space? And that's stressful too.
That is super stressful. I don't know how to do that. I've been accused actually of being too much, like
too real,
too down that shit down, Morty. But and I think you made a distinction that being real is not necessarily completely it's figure outable, as Marie Forleo would say, but it's not always obvious. And then sometimes you don't even know that you're not being real until somebody calls you on it. And it's also these sort of micro moments that come up, right? It's like my business partner and I, Cynthia, another best friend, we often talk about when somebody invites you to an event, let's say, we always feel so obliged to go. But do I really want to go? And do I really want to be with these people at this time? Right. I don't have to be making a lifelong judgment. Correct. But do I really want to be doing this thing? Yes.
Both for the activity, for the people that it is, for the location, for the other things I want to do. We should be precious about our time. We should also be generous with our time. So it's a balance. And in our busy lives, I've become more discerning about what I do, what I say yes to. And so that to me is being like real for me. And if there's also different levels of enjoyment. So it's not so black and white, like, oh, I'm not going to enjoy that or I will enjoy that. It could be degrees, and it's set against either other activities or maybe I just want to be alone. Like, I crave my alone time.
Me too.
I love my time with other people, with my kids and so on, but I crave alone time because I don't actually get it that much. And so it's okay to say, you know what, I would rather just sit in my pajamas and sit on the couch and watch Netflix and eat ice cream and,
One of the many things I really admire about you, and you talk about this in your chapter, is that whole idea of being intentional with your time and your choices, and what you said. It levels up to the being real, because you're very true to yourself. You are unapologetic when you say no to something. It's just sort of kind of matter of fact. It's not apologetic about it, because you've made the distinction that this is going to give you X amount of levels of joy versus this other thing that's pulling at you, because you always have choices. You especially are super social. You know a lot of people. You have a lot going on, and you love life. So you do a lot of stuff, but you'll be like, hey, I want to go on this trip because I'm going to enjoy it at this level, but I'm not going to do this thing at the same time as that thing because it's giving me 25% less joy, or that thing that you've assessed. So I find your intentionality really,
but that is practice.
That I want you to.
That is practice. That is not a natural state for humans. It is definitely not a natural state, I don't think, for women, our culture, and for women and for people who are involved in other people's lives, communities, companies, etc. And I was always doing everything and saying yes, and I still pack a lot in.
Mm-hmm.
But it is definitely practice to learn to say yes, no, or maybe, to different things. And it does take, like most things, it takes a village. So the people I surround myself with and the friends I have, like you, if somebody says, no, I'm not feeling up for this, I'm not offended.
There you go. That's awesome.
No one gets like their knickers in a knot about it. It's just because we've been through that. And maybe it takes a few misunderstandings to work that out, talk it out, and realize, I do have this relationship with this person where I can say, no, I don't want to come to your whatever thing.
Your kid's christening, it's not giving me joy.
Yeah, but if it's important to you that I be there, I will come to support you. But that's why I'm there. It's not because I want to talk to these other people. Nothing wrong with that. But maybe it's not my crowd. It's not my friends. So
how did you get that? How did you get that muscle? How did you develop that muscle?
Well, I think you learn from experience. You learn like, I just spent a day doing this, and I would have rather been doing something else. Or and listen, I come from a culture of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of family obligation, friend obligation in the Asian culture, and like in many other cultures. So I am not saying don't meet your obligations, because sometimes you just got to suck it up and do something. Right? Same thing at work. You can't say yes to some things and no to, everything you don't want to do. Same thing.
Yeah.
But, knowing which ones you like, don't want to do, don't want to do, and why is equally as important. If I don't enjoy doing something at work, I don't want to do it. Why is that? And it can't just be because I don't want to roll up my sleeves.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody needs to roll up your sleeves. As head of, a company, I've been packing boxes. I've been sweating and setting up booths, and I did all that, and I'm not above it. And actually, I mean, there is something about camaraderie in that too.
Yeah.
But knowing the difference between what is the thing that you want to focus on and not is important.
That's really, really great. So the intentionality around that, because you're making life choices all the time. And I think, I've known you for a long time. We've worked together. I've seen you be more intentional now than you've ever been.
Yeah, it's practiced, and I have my other best friend and partner, Cynthia, and you and others who are reminding me of that, because you will say, you really want to do that? Yes. With that face too. And this face. And we'll challenge each other about it, right? And that is friendship, and that's why I like this journey. I love this journey with you.
So there's a masterclass too, you guys. We've read that the unsaid is what controls a relationship. And so what Bernardine and I have figured out, at least one of the things we've figured out, is what goes unsaid can control a relationship if you allow it. It could be good or bad, but usually bad. So you got to kind of get it on the table. If something's bugging you that somebody did something and you're perceiving it as a slight or even an inconvenience or something that's negative, you just want to process it with them. And it doesn't have to be all, psychobabble. It's just, hey, listen, when you told me you couldn't come to my, girls' weekend, I was a little taken back or I was a little hurt. Can you just walk me through how, what your decision was or why you made that decision, or tell me more about how that showed up for you? Or you can just ask a non-confrontational question to kind of get to the heart of, so you can go on and be at that same level, I think, right?
Yeah, and we have done the work to process a lot of things, and in doing so, learn how to process things, including with people who haven't had as much of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to sound like, oh, I know better.
Right.
It's just that I've had the fortune of having workshopped it.
Right. And
Yep.
see what you would say.
Are we workshopping? Are we workshopping it? And so the process of working through something there is some tips and hints, right? And being able to say, how did that land for you? I said this, something happened there.
Yeah. Your
What are
face
you
changed.
experiencing?
Yeah. Your face.
Yeah.
Your
Tell me.
changed.
I'm pointing at you, but
Yes.
I wouldn't point. I would say,
Something happened.
tell me what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Or how did that make you feel? Or how did that land for you?
Yeah.
Or instead of, you made me feel whatever, this is how it landed for me.
Or you're an ass. You're an ass.
asshole.
You're an asshole. Oh, that's how you really escalate.
Yeah.
A fight.
But if you say, this is how it landed for me, how can somebody argue with that? It's how it landed for you.
Right. That's great.
I wish I had those tools a lot earlier.
Oh my God, do I ever. I wish I had those tools with my parents growing up, The idea that you had in the book was you enroll somebody, we call it enroll somebody in the possibility that, but so you had goals and you had specific intentionality around the way you wanted to show up and the way you wanted to be with people in your life. And you use this ask, the powerful ask. You don't ask, you don't get. It comes back to that. You have a great gift being able to say, hey, listen, explain a little bit to the audience. I want to be, or I want to do X and I'm not there yet. Can you help me do Y so that I can get there? Can I count on you to do that? So that's where you ask people, and it's so powerful. How do you say?
But I didn't know how to do that for a long time.
So give the audience an example. Give me an ask that just we'll make up one. We'll make one up. And how it sounded the first time you said it to me, I was like, damn, that's great. And he was like,
you've given me a lot of coaching on how to talk to my kids. And that's where the powerful ask can come in. Talking to them like adults and making the ask and giving them the choice to agree to that ask or not. I think that in, business partnerships, it's the same thing. My last company, I started with a best friend, and that has its challenges, and it's amazing. It's the happiness and the glory and the joy that it brings far, far, far exceeds. And we have been through a lot because it is like a marriage.
Sure.
You have to work through some of these difficult situations, and it made our friendship stronger. It made our business stronger.
That's great, because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. We just did a podcast actually together, and we had so much fun doing the podcast back and also kind of memorializing our relationship. And you don't really hear a lot about co-founders and co-leaders. And so I think that in many, again, it comes back to like, it's those micro moments and the macro moments, right? Asking, first of all, when I started the company, will you do this with me? All the way to, I think we should sell the company now. Will you do this with me?
Wow.
And like, those are big moments. Those are big moments.
Those are big asks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And that's great. I mean, for somebody who works with her husband, I get that.
Yes, it's very impressive that you guys have this really successful business working together, and that you make it work. But clearly, it's because he lived the book before you wrote the book with you.
that's great. And so what do you want to go on to? I think
I think the third theme that we thought we would talk about is just where I'm at today. So the company was acquired last year. We work for the parent company. We're really happy about the transaction and the transition and where we are today. I've probably in my late 30s, I started this life's too short mentality.
Really? That far back. That's great.
Yeah, I think I haven't had a lot of death in my family, but I saw things happen, right? And it's the whole, like, you never know when your time is up.
So true.
And so a lot of our generation grew up with our parents working really hard to get to a retirement and then enjoying life. And at some point, I very early said, that's not what I want to do. I want to live life as I'm earning it and going through it. Of course, got to afford it, have to, have these obligations and so on. But so since my late 30s, I've grown in this life's too short philosophy. And so I try not to give my kids material things. We have experiences. Travel is a really important part of me, of our family. When we have, Christmas week or whatever, we are doing stuff. I love roller coasters. We have adventure girl, adventure girl.
This is adventure.
We go axe throwing. Oh, she's bowling, and we discovered curling.
Yeah, I love curling.
Who would know that there's curling in New Jersey?
Yeah, that's right.
And then even during COVID, we were traveling. We went to Machu Picchu. We went to Africa. I want to have those experiences with my kids, my friends.
Yeah.
With like an adult trip, we chartered a boat and went around the islands of Croatia. I've been to many countries, many continents, done many different things, and not always. I mean, sometimes very economically,
right?
And just want to live life that way. And so whatever your thing is, I'm not saying everybody has to travel. It could be
my thing.
It could be a particular sport or exercise. Steve's a biker. He picked it up. Cyclist. Sorry. But yes, there is a distinction.
There's a distinction with it.
But life's too short. If what you really enjoy is reading books, then make that space for it. If you always wanted to do art, whether you're good or not, do that. If you want to improve your spiritual self and spend more time meditating or go to an ashram or whatever, do it. Life is too short, and then you die.
Yeah.
So so someone said, I mean, I love my sleep, but someone said, like, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead. So
I don't like that. That's such a bad health.
It is true.
Such bad health.
I do love my sleep, but I think you got to figure out your life's too short
thing,
the way you're going to do it.
Yes.
Right. And it doesn't mean that you have to pack a lot of stuff in. It could be calm yourself down, which I need to do less.
Yeah. Well, I needed to learn how to do that. So for me, the life lesson to your life's too short was figuring out how to gracefully say no to things, to be able to give space to my things that I want to say yes to.
Right.
So I think it was Jess Sims. God bless Jess Sims from Peloton. I love her. I think she's, was it Robin Arzon? Anyway, one of them says you have to give your no's to protect your yeses.
Mm-hmm.
And that intentionality. My dad died at 65, and here I'm like I feel like I'm right around the corner.
So we're not too far from that,
right? So, you kind of go, oh my God, what if that was me? The last thing you want to do is sort of postpone the joy. Life has to be joyful as we go. Right? And one of the ladies I interviewed in the book is she reminds us, Kathy says, we forget that life is supposed to be joyful. We think it's supposed to be hard. It's not. You have to kind of do as much as you can to know what gives you joy so that you can do more of it. There's a great book that was written about the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. They spent a week together. It's called The Book of Joy. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's an easy read.
I'll do it.
And it's about joy and finding joy in the small things as well as the medium and the big things, and knowing what they are, and kind of, you know, pushing aside the other things that don't. I think what's a challenge for, especially for the younger generation, I'm going to make a huge generalization here, is where's the line between like self-care and joy with too much attention on yourself and not to others. And so, you know, there is sort of that balance. But I think at this age, we've earned it. And I would say, you know, as soon as you can, have your bit of life's too short and enjoy the joy part of life, and figure out what it is that gives you joy. And again, it doesn't have to be big things like big trips. It could be reading a book. It could be going to see a movie. Yeah. Like going to see the Barbie movie and in person in a theater was so much fun. Was it? It was fun. We're doing it again. We're going to do it again. And that sense of community and being a part of something together was actually really great. And I'd forgotten what that was like to be in a theater.
You dragged me to my last movie, I think. And literally, I hadn't been in a movie theater in about 5 years. It was crazy.
Yeah, we don't do enough of it. I don't do it. Or just now you can do the Netflix, I forgot what it's called, but you can watch a Netflix movie at the same time with your friends. Yes. And comment together at the same time, or comment together at the same time. There's a lot more communal activities. Yeah.
So masterclass from Bernardine, I think, in you know, what her journey has taught her, and hopefully what we can impart to the viewers and listeners here. Don't ask.
By the way, you make me sound so wise. Right. And I think we're really just sharing our life experiences, right?
Totally. I mean, yeah, I think you are wise. And I don't think that you came out of the womb wise. So I totally appreciate the fact that people who are wise today that I know and I respect and I love and I want to share with the world, were not born that way. You develop these wisdoms over time by falling on your face, making mistakes, doing the wrong thing, insulting yourself, not being kind to yourself, all the things that we all do, and then we beat ourselves up about it. You know what, you get, I'm at a certain point where I'm like, you know what, beating yourself up over shit, it's just not going to do anything. It's not going to change the fact that you just did something really dumb, or you said something really dumb, and you got to clean up your mess and just move on. So I think you get to the point where you're aware of who you are and what you want to do, and you just have to go with it and do the best you can, because that's all we've got.
Yeah. And I love that we have more language now and awareness to, label these things, understand them, work through them, clean up the mess sometimes.
Yeah, it's good. Well, here we are. So life's too short, be real, and don't ask, don't get. Those are 3 really great masterclass lessons brought to you by Bernardine Wu today. And I'll put some notes in the show notes and some hashtags and links that you guys can go to. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been great. And congratulations again. And to those of you listening, thank you for having me. And I couldn't be more impressed by this amazing woman here.
So sweet. All right. See you, everybody. Tune in next time. Please make sure to subscribe or comment. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Possibilities with Monique DeMeo, where we unpack life as a female mover and shaker. If you like the show, please consider liking it, or better still, subscribing to it and leaving us a rating. It truly does help. Also, you can pick up my book, The 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love, a practical guide for women in leadership. You can find the book, other episodes of this podcast, and how to stay in touch at MoniqueDeMeo.com. DEMAIO. I look forward to seeing you again soon. With gratitude, Monique.